My Week 12 NFL Power Rankings. Let's go get started. Okay, so for number 32, you got the Carolina Panthers. They're 1-9. This week they lost 33-10 to the Cowboys. Bryce Young did not play great, only 123 passing yards. Um, Panthers still aren't officially eliminated from the playoffs, but for all intents and purposes, they are. And basically, right now they're hoping. I mean, it really doesn't matter for them if they win or not because their pick goes to Chicago. So they're still going to be trying to win all of their games. They're not going to try to tank because it doesn't actually help them for their first round pick. But I would not expect them to have anything higher than the third overall pick, or anything lower than the third overall pick. Number 31, we got the New England Patriots. So they had a bye this week, but they did announce that Mac Jones is going to be benched next week for Bailey Zappi. They do play the Giants that week, so maybe they could still get a win over the Giants with Bailey Zappi. But I mean, I don't know. That's just going to be a very horrible game to watch as an NFL fan. Bailey Zappi versus Tommy DeVito isn't exactly going to draw a lot of viewers. But either way, I mean, whoever loses that game will actually be benefited more by getting the chance of a higher draft spot because I believe they're both about two. Patriots are 2-8. I think the Giants are 3-7. So the winner of that game, I guess the loser of that game would have the higher draft pick. So both teams might actually want to be losing that game. Number 30, you got the Chicago Bears. They're 3-8 now. The Bears, they almost beat the Lions this week. They only lost by 5 points. Had a chance on the last possession to go win the game. Then they got, strip sack and then safety out of it. But, the Bears were winning going into the fourth quarter. They were winning by 2 possessions late in the game, and they let the Lions come back on them, which isn't horrible because the Bears don't really want to win either. They just want a high draft pick for themselves and with the Panthers pick. So a loss isn't horrible for the Bears. Number 29, we got the New York Giants. So they played really well this week. Beat the Commanders 31-19. Tommy DeVito had 3 touchdowns this week, which is more touchdowns than Daniel Jones has had all season. He also has, in 3 games played, he has more multi-passing touchdown games than Kenny Pickett. That's kind of sad. Saquon Barkley had 140 yards and 2 touchdowns himself, so he was, really the only weapon this game. But yeah, they do play the Patriots this week, and I would expect the Giants to be able to probably win that game. But I'm not exactly sure if they really are wanting to win the game because I would like, as a Giants fan, not saying I am a Giants fan, but if I was a fan of the Giants, I would like to see the Giants lose more games so they can have a higher chance to get one of the top quarterbacks in the draft. Number 28 is the Washington Commanders. They dropped 5 spots after losing to the Giants. Kind of sad that you lost to the Giants the way you did. But Sam Howell threw for 3 interceptions in this game, so that's a lot of reason why. And you had 6 total turnovers, so 3 lost fumbles and 3 interceptions is not gonna win you a football game. So really gotta work that stuff out because you will probably win that game if you only had 4 turnovers instead of 6, which is still 4 turnovers is still a lot, but you probably could have won with only 4 turnovers in that game. So it's kind of sad that you had as many turnovers as you did. Number 27 is Arizona Cardinals. They looked a lot better with Kyler Murray. They only lost to the Houston Texans this week by 5 points, 21-16, so played pretty solid. Kyler Murray had 214 yards with 1 touchdown, 1 pick, then another 50 rushing yards with a touchdown there, so he's been playing really solid. They did lose linebacker Kaiser White for the season with injury, so that's going to hurt him a little bit, but then again, the Cardinals aren't exactly looking to win a whole bunch of games because I would like them to lose a lot and then maybe potentially be able to get Marvin Harrison in this draft. Number 26, got the Tennessee Titans. They're 3-7 now. They lost 34-14 versus the Jags this week, so not a great game for them. Will Levis played pretty solid. He only threw 17 passes, but he completed 13 of 17 for 158 yards and 2 touchdowns. So they did not throw the ball a whole lot, but when they did, it was actually pretty productive for them. Their run game, however, was not great. Derrick Henry did not show up like at all, which is kind of a trend as of late. Um, but yeah, you would expect Derrick Henry to be better than he has been so far. Number 25, you got the Jets. So they drop 3 spots this week. They lost 32-6 versus the Bills, so not a good game at all. They had 4 turnovers. Zach Wilson threw for a total of 81 yards. Then he got benched for Zach Boyle. He only threw for 33 yards on 1 less pass attempt, so did not look very good either. But they did announce that Tim Boyle is going to be starting next week for the Jets. We'll see how that goes. I don't exactly think either one of them is going to be able to make too much of a difference versus the Miami Dolphins. So, yeah. Number 24 is the Atlanta Falcons. They were on bye this week. I don't really got much to say about them except they do play the Saints this week, which is going to be a game that they need to win if they want a chance to win the division, because right now Falcons are 4-6, Saints are 5-5, and the winner of this game will be the current leader of that division. So it's going to be a very important week for the Falcons. Number 23, I got the Raiders. They're going to drop 2 spots after they did lose 20-13 versus the Dolphins. So it's not a bad game for them. Only lost by 7 to the Dolphins. They had 3 turnovers, but they also had 3 takeaways. So the defense was looking pretty solid. Offense, not so much. Aiden O'Connell did throw for 270 yards and a touchdown, but also 3 interceptions. So that's obviously not great. But yeah, the Raiders, if they want a chance to make the playoffs, they're gonna have a hard game this week versus Kansas City. But after that, they gotta win a couple more games. I mean, they got Kansas City twice in their last 6 games, so not exactly the easiest schedule for them. But they got to take advantage of games like Minnesota, Los Angeles, Indianapolis, and Denver, because they're probably going to have to win all 4 of those games if they want a chance to make the playoffs. Number 22, got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are 4-6, so they're also right up there with the Falcons and Saints in their division. If the Falcons do beat the Saints this week and the Buccaneers play, Buccaneers play the Colts this week. So if the Bucs can win and the Falcons can beat the Saints, then all 3 of those teams will be 5-6, tied for the lead of that division. So, we're after this week, we're gonna be able to tell a lot about what's going on in this division, because if the Bucs lose and the Falcons lose, and the Saints should have very easy control over that division, being 6-5, while the other 2 teams are 4-7. So, the Bucs and Falcons really need to win this week to have a chance for that division title. Number 21, I got the Green Bay Packers. They jumped up 7 spots. Sorry, they beat the Chargers 23-20, so they played pretty solid. Jordan Love threw for 322 yards, which is his first game of over 300 yards, and his second straight game of having a career high in passing yards. So, that screams development to me, at least. I mean, 2 straight games with career high in yards, showing that you're developing at least a little bit. So that's definitely promising for Packers fans. I don't expect the Packers to make any playoff noise. I mean, they definitely could if they could win out, or at least win a majority of their games left. But I'm not exactly hoping for much of a playoff push this season. But the development Jordan Love has shown the last 2 weeks is definitely promising for next season, as well as their young wide receivers also developing. Number 20, you got the Los Angeles Rams. They jump up 5 spots here. They beat the Seahawks 17-16, so not the best scoring game, but they did end up winning the game by 1 point. Cooper Kupp did get injured early second quarter, so maybe if Cooper Kupp plays the whole game, they win by more. But also Geno Smith for the Seahawks did suffer an injury in this game, had to come out for a little bit, and then came back towards the end, but probably wasn't quite full strength because he did get injured a little bit. But either way, they both teams suffered a little injury, so Rams were still able to come out on top, which is a good sign for the Rams. I just don't expect any real playoff noise for the Rams this year, especially if Cooper Kupp is going to miss this upcoming week. He said he's questionable for this week, but I'm hopeful, but I don't know. Number 19, you got the Chargers. They're going to drop 6 spots after losing to the Packers 23-20. So for the Chargers this week, oh my gosh. It was not the best game for them. Quentin Johnston, had a chance at the end of the game to catch a pass that would at least put him into field goal range. So they could have tied it and go to overtime, but it went right through his hands. So not a great look there. Keenan Allen earlier in the game also dropped a wide open touchdown. He was staring directly into the sun, I guess, so that's a little bit of an excuse, but I mean, you still got to find a way to come up with that ball because, I mean, it was right on his hands, and he was literally standing wide open in the end zone, so that's a tough break for the Chargers. Chargers got the Ravens this week. They're really going to need to win that game if they want any hopes of being alive in the AFC playoff race, because 4-7 is not going to bode well for you. But if they can somehow beat the Ravens this week, that would be really good for the Chargers. Number 18, I got the Saints at 5-5. So I've already talked about their divisional stuff. They had a bye this week. Michael Thomas is on the IR now, so that's going to hurt him a little bit. Because when you have 7 games left and you're going to miss one of your better players for 4 of those games, it's going to be tough. So you really need to be able to win some of those games without Michael Thomas, and especially need to win this week against Atlanta. Because if you can win this week against Atlanta, you'll be 2 games ahead of Atlanta, and hopefully the Buccaneers would lose as well, so you could be 2 games ahead of them too. So that would basically give you the division right there. If you're 2 games ahead of both those teams, that's a really solid lead at this point in the season, but you have to take care of business against Atlanta this week. I believe the game is at Atlanta, so Saints are really going to have to take care of business on the road. Number 17, they got the Colts. They are 5-5. Colts were on bye this week as well. They're still alive in this playoff race at 5-5, so pretty solid record there. They got the Buccaneers this week, so they need to win that game if they want to stay alive in this playoff race. They really need to win. So I think they could beat the Bucs potentially, but I think that'll be a close game probably. But for the Colts, they also released Shaq Leonard this week. I'm not 100% sure why they did that, but that's not exactly going to help them be able to make a playoff push because he was one of their better defensive players this year. So that's going to hurt them a little bit, and it's going to be interesting to see where Shaq Leonard signs this season, assuming he does sign somewhere. I got the Bengals. They're dropping 8 spots after they lost to the Ravens by 14, I believe. And then, of course, Joe Burrow got injured for the season. So, I mean, Jake Browning, I don't believe in Jake Browning to get this Bengals team to the playoffs. So basically, you're not really playing for anything right now because losses would help you to get a better pick, but either way, you're probably not going to get better than the 13th overall pick, even if you lose the majority of your games left. So, I don't know, 13th, and if you win a few games, you get up to the 20th pick. So the 13th versus the 20th pick isn't that much better. So, I mean, I'm going to be trying to win if I'm the Bengals, but it doesn't really matter if you lose either. Number 15, they got the Steelers. They're dropping 3 spots after they lost 13-10 versus the Cleveland Browns. So it was not a pretty game for this Steelers team, which, usually it isn't. Only 106 passing yards in this game. Jaylen Warren looked great with 129 yards and a touchdown, but, he still had less total carries than Najee Harris. But positive thing for the Steelers, they finally fired Matt Canada, so maybe their offense will look better this upcoming week. It's going to be very interesting to see, if Matt Canada or Kenny Pickett is the problem. I feel like it's a combination of both, but I do think that this offense should look better under a better play caller this week, which I'm not exactly sure who is calling the plays this week, but they can't be worse than Matt Canada. Number 14 is the Minnesota Vikings. So they were on a 5-game winning streak, I think. And then they lost to the Broncos this week by 1 point. So it was a sad loss for them. Josh Dobbs, he was playing pretty solid. 211 yards, a touchdown, a pick, and then he also lost a fumble. So 2 turnovers isn't great for him. But only a 1 point loss. They had a chance towards the end of the game to win, but they just couldn't get it done. So that's unfortunate for them. They also are still without Justin Jefferson. He's questionable to return for Week 12. So if they want to make the playoffs, they're probably going to want Justin Jefferson back. But they do have a fairly easy next few games against um, against the Chicago Bears, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Cincinnati Bengals, because they should be able to beat the Raiders this week, or the Bears this week. Then they got the Raiders next week, which could be a somewhat difficult game, but Justin Jefferson should for sure be back for that game. So they could definitely win that game. And then they got the Bengals with Jake Browning. So feel like the Vikings very easily could get 3 more wins right here, and getting into 9 wins will likely lock in a playoff spot for them. Number 13 is the Seattle Seahawks. So they did lose to the Rams 17-16 this week. I also mentioned the injuries in that game earlier. Geno Smith got injured for a little part of that game, but Cooper Kupp was also injured for most of the game, so I'm not going to give him a pass because of the injury, because both teams had a pretty significant injury in that game. But Geno Smith did play a lot better than Drew Lock. Drew Lock only threw for 6 passes, but he only had 3 yards and an interception in those 6 passes. So, likely if Geno Smith is playing instead of Drew Lock, he does not throw an interception in those 6 extra passes. But, still, you still ended up losing this game, and you had a chance to win at the end. You just missed a 55-yard field goal. So, you can't really blame that on your quarterback. So, yeah, they also did sign Jason Peters, who's like 41 years old. Signed him to give him a little bit of tackle depth. He's very old, so I'm not sure how much he's going to actually play, but he's a solid rotational lineman in there at least. Number 12, I got the Denver Broncos. They're jumping up 5 spots after they did beat the Minnesota Vikings by 1 point. I believe they've won 4 games in a row, which makes them the hottest team in the league currently. So that's good for Broncos fans. Kareem Jackson got suspended for the 2nd time this season. He's going to be out for 4 more games after his vicious hit on Josh Dobbs. Everybody loves Josh Dobbs, and Kareem Jackson is notorious for being a headhunter this season, and he tried to take out America's favorite player right now. So Kareem Jackson is definitely not well liked by the public currently, but no one. It's still the Broncos, so you don't expect them to be in the headlines that much. But so far on a 4-game win streak, and Kareem Jackson taking out America's favorite player, so the Broncos are definitely in the headlines right now. But they're going to have to get a good win over here next week versus the Cleveland Browns. Browns have a really solid defense, so it's going to be a tough matchup for Denver. Number 11 is the Cleveland Browns. They're 7-3 now after beating the Steelers 13-10. So, defense obviously won them this game. They only put up 13 points and still able to win. Dorian Thompson-Robinson did not play good. He threw for barely 50% completion with 165 yards and 1 interception. So not a good game for him at all. They did sign quarterback Joe Flacco. I don't think Flacco's going to play this week. But maybe next week he'll be able to be starting over Dorian Thompson-Robinson if he does not play good again this week. I think he's a slight upgrade at least over Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He's obviously not as mobile because he's like 40 years old, but he's definitely a better pocket passer than Dorian Thompson-Robinson at this point. But you got to give DTR 1 more week and see if he can do better than he did last week. But if not, I think they would turn to Joe Flacco. Number 10, you have the Buffalo Bills. They did get a good win, 32-6 over the Jets this week after losing to them last time they played them. So if they would have lost to the Jets again, that would have been really disappointing as a Bills fan. But they did have 4 takeaways on defense. So their defense was amazing this week. Josh Allen was really solid with 275 yards and 3 touchdowns with only 1 interception. So a pretty good game for him. James Cook had 100 yards and a touchdown. Khalil Shakir had 100 yards and a touchdown. So they played really good. But they do have a lot of tough games left on their schedule. For the next 3 games, they got the Eagles, the Chiefs, and the Cowboys. So I don't know if they're going to be able to win any of those games. So if they did lose all those games, that would put them at 6-8, which is going to be difficult to make the playoffs. But then they do got the Chargers, Patriots, and Dolphins to round out the season. So they really need to win those 3 games. So they got to win at least 3 of the remaining games, which is definitely possible. But I don't know. It's going to be a challenge for them for sure. Number 9 is the Houston Texans. They did get a win this week over the Cardinals, 21-16. Not the prettiest win you would have hoped for. They had 3 turnovers. Did have 2 takeaways on defense, but C.J. Stroud threw for 336 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 picks. I believe he only had 2 interceptions going into today, and then he threw for 3 in this game alone. So it's definitely not ideal, but you still throw for 300-plus yards and got the win, so you can't be too upset about it. Devin Singletary had 100-plus yards and a touchdown for them. Tank Dell had 149 yards and a touchdown. He's been playing really, really solid this season. Next up, they got the Jaguars. So if they can beat the Jaguars, that'll give them a chance. They'll both be 7-4 after that game. Be tied at the top of the division. So that'll be really, really good for the Houston Texans if they can be able to win that game. Number 8 is the Jacksonville Jaguars. So for the Jags, they played the Titans this week and won 34-14. So they played a really solid game this week. Calvin Ridley had 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's been really quiet as of late, but he had a really good game this week. So that's really solid. And like I said, they do play the Texans this week. If they lose that game, they'll be tied for the top of their division at 7-4. So the Jags really need to win that game if they want to be able to take sole control over the division. Number 7 is the Baltimore Ravens. They're 8-3. I would have liked to move them higher than 7 because they are 8-3, currently the 1 seed in the AFC. But they did. They beat the Bengals by 14, but the Bengals were also without Joe Burrow the whole game, basically, for most of the game. But the Ravens were also without Mark Andrews, and Mark Andrews is going to be out for the rest of the regular season, at least. They said he could potentially be back at some point this season. Originally said it was probably season ending, but later said he could be back this season, but it would likely not be until the playoffs. So obviously missing Mark Andrews, one of your only real offensive weapons for Lamar Jackson, that's going to definitely hurt your chances of winning games this season. But, still really solid defense, and you have a really solid rushing game. It's just your passing game is definitely going to take a hit without Mark Andrews. Number 6, we do got the San Francisco 49ers. I would have liked to move them a little bit higher as well because they had a really solid game this week versus the Buccaneers. They won 27-14. Brock Purdy had a perfect passer rating with 333 yards and 3 touchdowns. Played a really, really good game. Brandon Ayuk had a really good game with 156 yards and a touchdown. McCaffrey got 100-plus yards and got back on his starting a new touchdown streak this week. So he played really good. But, you did lose safety Talanoa Hufanga for the rest of the season. So that's why you're not really moving up, is because you lost one of your best defensive players for the rest of the season, which is clearly going to take a hit for this team. Number 5, I got the Detroit Lions. They're surprising everybody at 8-2 this year, playing really good. They did not play great this week. They had 4 turnovers on offense. Jared Goff had 3 interceptions himself, but you're still able to come out with a 31-26 dub over the Chicago Bears. So a win is a win. Not a pretty win, but you played really good at the end of that game, coming back towards the end. And your defense held up really good on that last possession. So, you made the plays when it counts. Not the prettiest game, but a really good finish for them. Number 4 is the Miami Dolphins. They're dropping 1 spot. They only beat the Raiders by 7 points. You would have liked to see them win by more. They had 3 turnovers on offense. Not great. Did have 3 takeaways on defense. Jalen Ramsey had 2 picks himself. So Jalen Ramsey's playing really good. In 3 games this season, he has 3 interceptions. So he's making an impact defensively for sure. But you still only beat the Raiders by 7 points. You would have liked to see them win by more than that. Tyreek Hill, he is on pace for 2,077 yards. So he's on pace to break Calvin Johnson's receiving yard record by well over 100 yards, but he does have an extra game. So currently on a 16-game pace, Tyreek Hill is projected to be 9 yards shy of Calvin Johnson's record. So I think that is worth looking at because obviously he'll likely get to 2,000 yards on his current pace very easily, but that extra game is going to help him a lot. So I would like to see him, be able to beat Calvin Johnson's record in only 16 games. That would make it more meaningful. Number 3, got the Kansas City Chiefs at 7-3. Did lose to the Eagles this week by by 4 points, 21-17. You know, Marquez Valdes-Scantling just has to catch that pass. You're down by 4 points with like 2 minutes left. You throw a deep bomb to a wide open. Marquez Valdes-Scantling goes right in his hands, and then he drops it. It literally would have been a potential game-winning touchdown. At least putting you up by 3 points with a minute and a half left in the game. And your defense has been pretty solid, so you likely would have held them to at least a field goal and then go to overtime and see what happens. But, Marquez Valdes-Scantling has got to come away with that ball. The Chiefs receiving room really needs to step up. Even Travis Kelce did not do good this week because he did have a key fumble in that game as well. But yeah, here we got number 2 is the Dallas Cowboys. Oh, sorry. You already know number 1 now, but number 2 is the Dallas Cowboys. They're jumping up 2 spots. They demolished the Panthers 33-10. Deron Bland had a pick 6 in this game, making it his 4th pick 6 of the season, tying the all-time record for picks in a season. He still has 7 games left, so we definitely could break that record, which would be pretty insane, I would say. Cowboys, they should have an easy win next week versus the Commanders. So that'll put them at 8-3, which, Cowboys likely aren't winning their division right now, but they should have the number 5 seed at least locked up pretty easily. And then number 1, you already seen it, but, everyone should have known this by now. Eagles are the number 1 team in the league right now at 9-1, just beat the Chiefs by 4 points. Jalen Hurts did not do great passing, only 150 yards with 1 interception, no passing touchdowns, but he did have 2 rushing touchdowns. DeAndre Swift had 100 yards and a touchdown. Devontae Smith had 99 yards. So Devontae Smith basically was their only their only receiving weapon this game. And DeAndre Swift was really good on the ground. The run game was great, like usual. They do have a very tough schedule still coming up with Buffalo, San Francisco, and Dallas. But this week marked their first of a tough 4-game stretch, and they took care of business in the first week. So no reason to believe that they can't do the same in the next 3 weeks. So yeah, that brings me to my game picks here. If I haven't made this clear before, my lock of the week, I'm trying to pick a different lock every week, so I'm not trying to use the same team twice. So that's probably why you may be questioning my lock of the week. It's because I'm not trying to use the same team twice in the same season. But this week, my overall record went 8-6, which isn't great, but definitely better than it did last week. My lock of the week record is total of 10-3. My upsets are 7-4 right now. I've missed both of those the last 2 weeks, so hopefully I can bounce back on that. My overall record is 109-55, so about a 67% win percentage, about 66% right there. Not horrible. I'd like to see it a little better than that, but as my picks this week, I got the Lions over the Packers. Shouldn't be too difficult for them to win that game. I got the Cowboys over the Commanders. They should definitely win that game pretty easily. Commanders are not looking good right now. Niners over Seattle. Seattle might be without Geno Smith. So definitely if Geno Smith is not playing, the Niners should win that game pretty easily. Dolphins over the Jets. I mean, Tim Boyle's not beating the Dolphins. I got the Falcons over the Saints. That should be a very close, very competitive game for the lead in the division. But I got the Falcons winning that game mostly because Michael Thomas is out. So that should hurt the Saints a little bit. Got the Giants over the Patriots. Should be a close game, but I don't think Bailey Zappi is that good. Tommy DeVito just played a really good game last week, so I don't see why he can't at least, somewhat replicate that game again. And Bailey Zappi isn't going to be better than Tommy DeVito probably. So, that game's just not going to be a very fun game in general. I got the Titans over the Panthers. I mean, that game could go either way. Neither quarterbacks, they are really great either, but they're both rookie quarterbacks, so that's going to be a fun duel based on that. I got the Steelers beating the Bengals. I don't think Jake Browning is going to do anything against the Steelers defense. And I think the Steelers offense should look improved without Matt Canada. I got the Bucks over the Colts. I mean, that should be a fun game for them. I got the Bucks coming away with it. Should be close, but Colts did, lose Shaq Leonard this week, and Bucks have a better offense, so they should win that game. Jags over Texans. It could be very fun, very high-scoring game. I do believe the Jaguars will pull it out, but it definitely could go either way. I got the Cardinals beating the Rams. I mean, Cooper Kupp's questionable this week. Cardinals have looked pretty solid the last few weeks with Kyler Murray, and I don't expect them to do any worse against the Rams defense, which isn't a great defense. I got the Browns over the Broncos. That should be a close game, but I don't think the Broncos are going to be good enough to do much against this Browns defense. The Eagles over the Bills. That should be a very fun game, very high-scoring game potentially. But Eagles have looked like the most dominant team in football, so I got to pick them again. I got the Chiefs over Raiders. That should be pretty easy. If the Chiefs lose to the Raiders, I'm a Chiefs fan, so if the Chiefs lose to the Raiders, I'm just going to retire from football, basically, or just be a bandwagon Josh Dobbs fan or something. But yeah, got the Ravens over the Chargers. I mean, this does feel like a game that the Chargers could somehow win after just losing to the Packers. It feels like they could, come out, have a really good game, and beat the Baltimore Ravens. But I'm just going to pick the Ravens just because they've been more consistent, have a way better defense. Then I got the Vikings over the Bears. I mean, the Bears aren't good. Vikings, aren't 100% great either, but they definitely are better than the Bears. And especially if Justin Jefferson plays this week, they should win that game. So yeah, the Vikings are my lock of the week. I had to pick somebody that I haven't picked before, so I got the Vikings in that, and I got the Giants as my upset. I'm not completely sure why the Giants are upsets because, I think they have a better quarterback in this game probably. Definitely have the better running back. Definitely have the better tight end. Their defenses, both aren't great. Their lines both aren't great. It's definitely a battle of two bad teams, but I think the Giants are a better team, so they should win that game. So that's what I got. Thank you for watching. Make sure to come back next week for our updated power rankings list and let me know your thoughts and your own power rankings down in the comments.